staff, Kayla Simpkins, November 3rd at 3:30. So please do make sure that you are ready to join and log on to that. And be sure to register and ask your questions beforehand. Thank you. Was that good? Was that okay?
Perfect. Very good. Very, very good.
I was all right. We're gonna get this. We're gonna be good.
It will be fun. It'll be a great conversation.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Hawkins. Oh my goodness, I'm nervous. It's okay though. Hello, hello.
Hey, Caitlin, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Fine, thanks.
Good. A little nervous for this, but very excited, very ready. Kind of.
It's going to go great.
I hope so. Fingers crossed. We get this.
It'll be good.
Kira, anything you want to share with Matt or Mary Beth about things they should know about their song when it's their turn?
I literally almost had a spit take just now. I'm halfway through a cup
That's
of coffee.
wrong, Patrick.
I was waiting till Matt got that big gulp. Now, just so you know, if people have anything that they need, they put it in the chat. If people have questions, last time we didn't go to any of the live questions because it took the whole like 20 minutes to go through the questions that people had asked already. So yeah, if you need anything, just let us know. We'll be here on the back end, and whatever you need, we're here.
Patrick, I was just going to ask, was it till 12 or is it till 11:45?
11:45 is how we advertised it.
Perfect. Okay. I don't want to be time sensitive.
All right, cool. I'm going to go ahead and start the webinar.
Hello, everyone. My name is Caitlin Orozco, and I currently serve as this year's AS Vice President. I'm currently a senior majoring in speech and language pathology, and I'm actually from Whittier, California, so a bit farther up. Just to give a little bit of insight on me. Today, I would like to welcome everyone to our second campus conversation of the semester, so that is extremely exciting. Today, I'm joined by our Vice President of Academic Affairs, Provost Mary Beth Walker, and Vice Provost Matthew Kwan. Hello. So AS has developed these campus conversations as a means to create more transparency and better communication between our student body and our administrators. We wanted to be sure that our students had the most transparency possible when it comes to any upcoming plans for the following school year and with advisement. We will be starting off with an opening statement from our provost, and we will then be going into a series of questions that were previously submitted for the provost and vice provost to answer. Since this is a webinar, please feel free to use the Q&A section at the bottom of the screen if any questions do arise. We also have subtitles for anyone that may need them under the More tab. So be sure to use those if it is a little bit more convenient. But without further ado, I will be handing it off to our provost, Provost Walker, for her opening statement.
Well, good morning, everyone. And isn't it a lovely day? I could only wish that I was getting to meet with you all in person, and I very much look forward to doing that in the spring. So Caitlin, I hope you will invite me back for another campus conversation in the spring. So I have a number of items I want to share with you, and then I really would hope I can answer your questions. The first thing I want to say to all the students is we are so happy to welcome you back for the spring semester. We're so happy to see some of you this semester, and we will see even more of you next semester. And we are really excited about that. And I know in some of my conversations with students that I see on campus, they are also excited to have the opportunity to be on campus. So I want to tell you about all the different ways that we have made the campus safe and welcoming for all of our students and our employees who are returning to campus. And I think this is an important point that everyone understand just how seriously we are taking the safety of our community. So one of the, and probably the most important thing to note for everyone is the very, very high vaccination rate of both our students and our employees. So of the students who are on campus at any time this semester, the vaccination rate is well over 90%. The same is true of our employees. It is also the case that we're keeping an eye. People are using the testing. Those students and those employees who have exemptions, medical or religious exemptions to the vaccination, are doing regular testing, weekly testing. And so that's an important measure that Csun is taking to keep everybody safe. We also have in every building on campus much improved ventilation, and so you know that the airflow, in the air purification that's going on in the classrooms, that and in all the buildings is a really important characteristic of creating a safer environment. So that's something I wanted to point out too. The other really important thing to note is, we've had thousands of students on campus and employees on campus this semester for classes, for labs, for different events, and we have had no community transmission of COVID-19. So there have been cases where people have reported that, they were in Jacaranda Hall and later found that they had a positive test for COVID, but none of those instances have resulted in any kind of widespread transmission of the virus. And so it's actually been, the methods we have in place have been really successful thus far. I would also note that we have a mask protocol in the classroom. Now, outside, walking around on campus, if you're on your own, you're not required to wear a mask. If you're in a group of people, we do ask you to wear a mask outside, and people are very, very compliant with this. I have heard of no cases where that has created a real problem in any classroom or lab or in any office space. So that's another, we anticipate that the mask requirements will remain in place. The increased cleaning that goes on in all our different buildings, that will stay in place in the spring as well. And so it is an environment that we feel very happy and comfortable to welcome you back to. And so I think that's an important thing to note. A second area I wanted to discuss with you is about the spring course schedule. The last bits of the spring course schedule are being put into place over, I think, this week and maybe some of next week. And we're looking to have about 80% of our courses be face-to-face, be on-campus classes or a true hybrid class. So a true hybrid class means that 50% of the class meetings are on campus. And so that means about 20% of our courses in the course schedule of our sections are fully virtual for the spring. And so I know that some of you have struggled this fall with having a schedule that's got it's got one class on campus, and then you've got like 3 or 4 other virtual classes, or maybe one of those other 4 classes means you come to campus to take exams a couple of times during the semester. And it's really hard to put together a schedule that works with the rest of your life schedule, right? Whether it's work or family obligations. I think the spring's going to be easier. It's going to be easier to put together the classes and the schedule that you need that will help you with your own, managing all the other parts of your daily schedule. So that's an important point. We are trying to, by and large, do away with the classes that were listed for this fall as some kind of intermittent course, which meant that there were irregular and probably infrequent on-campus meetings. So they were like designated COI, campus online intermittent. And there was another one, right? There was another designation.
There was COA and COS. Both of those were primarily online with some kind of scheduled but intermittent on-campus meeting.
And there was still, so the A and the S mean it's either a synchronous class, which has established meeting times, or asynchronous, which means that the class doesn't actually meet, whether on Zoom or in person, but does works through the Canvas and works through to do it asynchronously. So that was confusing to us, that all the intermittent stuff, and to a lot of students. And so that is very much diminished to only maybe 50 sections out of the over 6,000 sections that'll be on the spring schedule that you will see very shortly. So as we are ramping up the on-campus classroom experience, also all the other ways that we support you through, whether it's advisement or whether it's the campus restaurants, food services, all of that will return to a livelier, more in-person opportunities. Now, in some areas, people have been really clear that they would like to keep some virtual advisement, so academic advisement or virtual counseling. So some virtual services will definitely remain in place, but I think it should be easier across the campus to have in-person support when that's what you're looking for. So I think that's another, important part as we move into the spring. We would also, and Dr. Watkins will be speaking to you about this in the next campus conversation, but along with the increased classroom experiences for spring, there will also be a variety of other kind of co-curricular opportunities that will be on campus. We've already had, some events that have been very successful that we've really appreciated being able to have this fall, but we would expect those kind of opportunities to ramp up as well. So that's kind of what the spring's looking like. And that's what we're thinking about, all the student-facing services that we provide across the campus. The last thing I would say is that everything we know that the current public health situation, we know that that's not static, right? And that this has been a dynamic process that has been, hard to deal with in real time, trying to make, substantial changes in real time. Now, we can offer that early December, so before this fall semester comes to an end, we will make a very clear statement and send a very clear message that, where we are at that point, so it could be everything's looking good, all systems go for spring, or it could be, we're seeing some signs of concern, and we're gonna have to probably be ready to make a few changes. And so we know how hard it is on you, and it's hard on all of us to have this constantly changing situation, but we will at least provide one clear update before the fall ends. And of course, as we get into spring, if there's any, we will again start sending those messages. And so again, I'm happy to have a chance to talk to some of you today, and I'm happy to answer the questions that you've provided.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Provost Walker. We are going to go into a few more specific details just to go over a little bit more about those in-person opportunities that we were talking about in terms of the classroom and around campus, just with in-campus activities. And so we're going to start off with the first few questions. So the first being, what will these classes look like when we go back into the spring? Will all classes be going back in person for the spring semester, or will any remain virtual?
So if you think about a spring schedule that has over 6,000 course sections, so 20% of those will be virtual. And so, of course, that 20% doesn't mean 20% in every department or even 20% in every college, right? So some, especially like in the lab sciences, the clinical work, more of that will be on campus and fewer will be online. But in other areas, and for example, I think in the College of Humanities, So the courses offered through the College of Humanities, that is about 28% of their course sections will be offered virtually. So it's for the campus as a whole, it comes to around 20%, but it differs. So depending on your major and depending on your, if you're upper division or lower division student, there'll be different choices between the online and on campus.
Perfect. With that being said, how many people will be allowed to be on campus, and what are the plans for how things will look when it comes to maybe reopening certain areas, maybe more livelihood in the USU? I know that there are some areas that are closed, such as diners and eateries. So maybe what will that be looking like a little bit more?
Well, on a regular day, so pre-COVID, pre-pandemic, there were somewhere between 15 to 18,000 people on campus on any given day. So, our full population of 38,000+ students and what is it, about 6,000 employees, we were pretty much never all on campus at the same time, right? So the campus population on average, not on a Friday, Friday's a little thinner, but between 15,000 and 18,000. So in the spring, we think that the number on campus on a regular, not a Friday, but on a weekday, probably is going to be between 10 and 13,000. So see, it'll be a lot more active than it is now, but it won't be fully back because of, the continuing online classes, et cetera. Some staff and some offices will continue to vary their work schedule between virtual and in person. And so really one of the things is trying to meet the demand and figure out what that's going to look like, the demand for in-person services versus online. And so I think that we'll see some shuffling, moving around a bit the first couple of weeks of the semester as we respond to that. But all the buildings should be open. We should have, like I said, in-person support in every area on campus.
Amazing. Thank you for that response. And now, for instance, if I wanted to finish the next semester online, could I do that? Who would be the one to decide what classes are back on campus and what would be more so online courses?
Well, so those are decisions, the class schedule, the course schedule, including modality, those are decisions that are made in the colleges. And so there are conversations between the college dean, associate dean, and the chairs of the different departments. And so the decisions about how much are we going to offer online versus how much are we going to do back to, in person, that takes place at that level. So if you are finishing the semester, it's possible, but I mean, if you're finishing, like if you're an upper level, if you're a senior level student, then it's possible you could find the appropriate online courses in the spring, but it's actually not likely. So the students most likely to find a full complement of online classes in the spring are the more likely to be lower division students who still have tons of gen ed kind of general education courses still to take, because then the variety of classes that you need are the variety is so big that you can look around and find these courses. So especially if you're in the sciences and in engineering, in some of those areas, then it would be virtually impossible to find a course schedule that did not require you to come to campus.
Of course. Wonderful. And going off of that in-person kind of experience, now that we are transitioning for the following semester with a little bit higher of a capacity, what options do students have if their classes were to be in person and then moved into a virtual setting? Will that be allowed to happen again? And if needed, can we switch it all to online?
Well, if the virus situation is such that we have to pivot back to online, of course we will. The safety of our community, health and safety is the most important thing. So, you know, in LA County Public Health, if we are pushed in that direction, we'll have to go. You know, we won't have any choice to do that. I think that in terms of if everything's a go and we're coming back to campus, then you actually can't, a faculty member can't just switch the modality of a course. And so that, you know, that if it's an on-campus course, it will stay an on-campus course unless there is some big change in the public health situation. There could be, I mean, I'm just, you know, there's all kinds of possibilities, right? I mean, you might have a class where there were a couple of positive cases that got reported, and the class could decide to go online for a week. You know, that the instructor, that's happened, I think, in at least a couple of classes this fall. But, you know, but the large, any complete, say, removal from, it was scheduled to be on campus, but now it's not, you know, that should not happen.
Of course. Well, thank you so much. We are, now that we did touch on to, you know, some of our in-person opportunities for the upcoming semester, we are going to be looking at like how other aspects of the school may function. So maybe how advisement, the specifics of advisement, and other larger topics such as diversified faculty. We're going to get into some of those questions. So with that being said, how would advising out, we do know that like advising hours are very limited. So how is Csun trying to improve those advising hours in terms of like maybe like how we're setting it up, how we have, you know, the number of individuals who are running advisement, anything along those lines?
So there's, you know, the immediate answer is advisors are available with, you can make appointments with them online, and they're available 8 to 5, you know, during the week, right? And so we will have more advisors on campus for, you know, face-to-face advisement. We will continue to have some virtual advisement opportunities as well. But the real answer is that to the question that Caitlin's raising here is that we are hiring more advisors. We recognize that the advisement opportunities are limited really by the number of advisors that we have. And we are over the next, so, you know, this is not fast enough for the immediate needs, but we are ramping up the capacity in that area because we know how critical it is. And of course, you know, that there's advisors, we all need our advisors all semester long, but there are real peak load problems, you know, the couple of weeks before the semester and the couple of weeks after the semester started. And so we know that that is an especially busy time. We've actually talked about some ways that we could alleviate the peak load, but there's no real good answer on how to solve that for semester after semester. But let me just say, I do, you know, worry with you the ability to find an advisor in a timely manner. I agree that's an issue that we need to do a better job of solving.
Of course. Wonderful. And with that addition of advisors, I feel like that will definitely help so many students when it comes to like, you know, a better possibility of how their graduation rate may be, and getting classes that they need, that accessibility. With that being said, in terms of graduation, when will we know if we're having a graduation this year?
Well, that's an exciting question, isn't it? And currently, Dr. Watkins shared with me that currently we're looking to have an in-person graduation this spring. And so, you know, our plans are moving along in that direction. I think that again, we will have to come back to that. We haven't got our specific plans in place yet. And of course, just like with anything, there's a possibility we would have to back off that, but we are looking forward to organizing an in-person graduation. And I participated in the virtual graduations of every college, the university, and then every college last year. And they were fun, but they are not the same. So I'm looking forward to it. And I hope you all are too.
Well, I most definitely am looking forward to it, especially since I do hopefully plan to graduate in the spring. So I know myself and many other students are extremely excited to hear that. That is wonderful news. But let's go into a little bit more about maybe some faculty. I know there has been a lot of conversation regarding faculty and the diversifying of faculty, how that kind of like plays a role, especially in our campus that is so richly diverse. With that being said, what efforts are being made to diversify the faculty here at Csun, and what has Csun done and what is planned to kind of follow through when it comes to that?
Oh, thanks for that question. I'm so glad that you asked that question. We are taking this very seriously with, and I agree with what Caitlin, what you just said about the value, the real importance of having faculty of color across the whole university to support our students. So could not agree with you more about how important this is. So we have devised and are in the process of implementing a completely rebuilt recruitment plan. And so with much more training for the search committees who are doing the work, much wider advertising of open positions, and enhanced understanding across all the parts of the process. From the advertising of the positions, we want the position descriptions to really speak to the rich diversity of our campus and how much, this is how these are our values that we stand in and believe in, and we want to see applicants who also want to embrace it. And so, so changing the position description. So that's like a very early on thing you do. But then in all steps of how we assess the candidates and how we deal with some of the issues that have arisen in the past to make our pools more robust, our finalist pools more robust, and our hires more robust. Let me just say that that's step one. That's important, and it creates change across in every department that's recruiting. Changes the role of the Equity and Diversity Office. It changes, so there's, this is a not insubstantial change for this recruiting. These plans were based on very robust research that showed, best practices, effective practices in diversifying hiring. Nonetheless, that's still just step one. So beyond that, there have been a lot of creative ideas that we have discussed to adopt. Once we get this recruiting down, then we can turn to other ways that might create more diverse pools and more diverse hires. Let me also say that we can't ignore the retention part of it as well. So we want to hire faculty, but then we want to make this for the junior faculty coming in, we want to make sure that they succeed and they feel welcome and they are supported in their work here at Csun. And so those plans are not totally in place yet, but we hope to have plans that we can announce in the spring semester on the retention part of it. And so I just to make sure I underscore, the new recruitment plan is in the process of being implemented this fall. It's not fully implemented yet. Next year will be the first year that it's fully implemented.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And then just going off of that topic of just diversity in general, I know we did touch a lot on how diversifying faculty in the previous question. That does fall true to our, to our student body as well, just because we do have such a richly diverse community at Csun. With that being said, there is just one group that I would say maybe, we can shed a little bit more light on, and I would definitely say that is our student parents. We have had the privilege just to be able to have some more interaction with our student parents and just kind of like get a little bit more personal conversations. And we just want to make sure that they're being as best represented as possible on our campus. But with that being said, what can the university do to make our parent scholars feel included at Csun?
Well, I think that's a really good question. And I know that Dr. Amy Levine has done some work with I believe it was a focus group of student parents to better understand where the university, how the university can meet their needs and what does that really look like across the university. And so, this is my third year here, so I've not been here forever, but I can recognize from some of the conversations that Dr. Levine reported that there are some things that we can certainly do. And so I know, we've talked a little bit about the childcare facilities, et cetera, on campus. We've talked about spaces, the other spaces that are like shorter term care, not really like daycare, but for that students could come bring their children into. So we've had a lot of those sorts of conversations. And I think that, come back to me on that one soon as we get some firmer plans in place, because I agree with you that this is an important issue for so many of our students, and many of whom travel, drive to get here. And so it can really complicate the come to class part, right? Or the studying part, or the turning in a project part. So, yeah.
Amazing. And then just quickly going off of that, because I do know that there are areas such as the University Village that does house families and student parents. But going off of that, how else can we, how else can the university provide more inclusivity for the student parents? Whether that be like outside of just that housing area, if there are any other opportunities that you would see.
Well, I think that there are opportunities there, but we want to make sure that we really hear from the student parents to make sure that we're moving doing the right things first. We want to prioritize what matters the most. And so I know, for example, in our new spaces that are being either remodeled or redone, there are lactation rooms now that are much more available for mothers with infants. And so that is a relatively small thing, but that is getting much more widespread across the campus that I think can provide help. I think they are, and this is not, my particular area in academic affairs, but the renovation of the University Student Union really addresses some of these issues pretty directly. And so I think there's all kinds of possibilities, but we really want to prioritize, the things that matter the most.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for the response. We are just going to follow up with another question, which is, what is the status of getting additional space for Project Rebound?
Well, that Dr. Watkins and I have been talking about this for quite some time, and we are looking all over campus. We're opening closet doors and stuff. We're really trying to. We are very space strapped. And so we talked about parts of the library, and we've talked about parts of Redwood Hall, I guess. We've really been looking into what the possibilities are. And I think that, and this is not, we've talked about building an addition to maybe the Chicano house to help with, that could be a part, spot for this. So we've basically, all the options are on the table. I think that our best short term is going to be, and it's Project Rebound. It's also like the Bridge to the Future students, and we could probably name a couple of other. We probably will end up repurposing some classrooms. So as we move from the spring, really into the new normal, post-pandemic normal, the greater percentage of classes that will be virtual hybrid gives us opportunities to rethink the way that we've used classroom space. A few years down the road, the Sierra Annex, the new classroom building, will be there, and that will give us still more opportunities. So, it's the current situation is a difficult one. It's in for many student groups and for certain offices that have, and certain areas that have grown, and there's no room to put anybody. So I completely understand that the frustration at not having good space.
Of course. And with going off of that, I guess touching a little bit more on the vaccination status of students, because there are concerns for those who may have exemptions, whether religious or medical. Will non-vaccinated students be able to use the gym or Student Recreation Center, otherwise known as the SRC, and the Oasis in the spring? Because I know those are some of the big ones that we do offer to our students that is included in the tuition. So we just wanted to see if the exemption or negative COVID test did affect that in any way.
Totally understand. I mean, the closing of the SRC was one of the sad moments of the pandemic for me, personally. So I completely appreciate the question. So my understanding is that, that students that are either vaccinated or if they've got an exemption, then they're doing the regular testing, that their use of the SRC will continue in the spring. So right now, the use of the SRC, everyone in there is masked. And I will also say that the population there is pretty low. So, that a lot of people have not resumed using it. So, but we would expect that to increase in the spring as well. And I would think that for the other areas beyond just the SRC. The SRC is a nice, gosh, it's a wonderful space, isn't it? And so well equipped and stuff. And so I hope that a lot more people will be using it in the spring.
Absolutely. I know the SRC and the Oasis are some of my favorite locations on campus. So I can't help but resonate with our students on that because they are wonderful facilities and so eco-friendly, which I love. But going off of that, thank you so much for touching up a little bit more on how our students who may have those exemptions can go about using those facilities. But as we continue on, our final question is going to be, how can students that may not necessarily be involved in associated students be involved in the conversations to help guide some of Csun's big changes, I would say?
Well, I am delighted that you've asked me that question as well. So that starting this semester and continuing through the spring, we're working on a Csun's roadmap to the future. So we are having broad campus conversations, deep campus conversations about setting our priorities, looking at our mission, our values, finding the common ground that we share in all the things that we value and care about here at Csun. We are a very consequential institution in the San Fernando Valley, the LA region, in the CSU, and nationally. We have, a real important role to play, and we are going to have conversations about the roadmap, setting the campus priorities for the next decade, say, and everyone will have multiple opportunities to be involved in this conversation. The steering committee is just getting going. We've got wonderful student participation in this, but that's not the way that everyone's going to be involved. Obviously, we will have campus conversations. We will have World Cafe conversations. We will have focused groups, small groups, and repeated, where we take up particular issues and really deal with some of our understanding. We need to come to a shared understanding of student success, or what does it mean to stand in our values of inclusive excellence. So I need everybody's participation in those conversations. So the priorities that we come up with, they need to authentically reflect where we have been, which is not where we want to be now. We want to move past that and move into the future in a very productive way, representing the values that we share. So there will be so many different opportunities, and we will make sure that everyone has. There's actually a link on the homepage for Csun Roadmap to the Future. And that will also be a place where you can see the progress that we're making and the different levels of engagement, or what's coming next for opportunities for engagement. So I'm really hopeful that anyone that views this will take advantage of the opportunities to participate, because we need every voice in this.
Of course, thank you so much for that answer. That was wonderful. That was actually our final question for today's campus conversation. But with that being said, I would love to open the floor to both of you for any final statements or comments that you may have.
Well, I did want to point out one thing, and this is kind of more of a technical issue, and Matt can take this over if I don't represent it correctly. But across the university, so our university as a whole is accredited by WASC, the Western Association of Schools and Colleges, and they give us our accreditation. And so WASC has requirements, the kind of institution we are. They actually have requirements about how much we do in person versus how much we do online. And so switching up an entire program to be completely online, that can be done, but you have to, meet the requirements of our accreditor. Beyond WASC, many particular programs in the business school is accredited by AACSB. And they have other requirements for how much can be virtual and how much can be how much needs to be in person. And so again, the point would be that making the decisions about how we go forward, not just next semester, but into the future, we've got to pay attention to all those different accreditation requirements, because your degrees, that when you come out of here with your degree in physical therapy or your degree in nursing or whatever it might be, needs to meet the standards of the national accrediting body. And so that technicality does. So during the pandemic, for the most part, the accreditation standards were relaxed because, you just didn't have choice. You had to be virtual across the country, but those requirements are coming back into play now. And so we have some exceptions from WASC for this spring, but I do want to point that out because that's a kind of a complicating factor in a lot of the decisions about scheduling.
Yeah, and if I could just add just a little bit to that, for programs that are online outside of a national emergency like COVID, there are very specific requirements as to the kind of virtual support to supplement the in-class activities and instruction. And as we know, I think that our campus has responded very well to the emergency, but we have not in all cases been as successful as we might have hoped in completely virtual. And as we begin moving back, we fully understand that there are areas that we can continue to leverage the success of those virtual services and instruction where we know that we've been successful, but we also have to recognize that for those other areas where we have not been successful, we both need to, again, supplement our in-person presence so that we can provide those services. And for those programs in which we may want to retain a larger virtual presence, we will need to create and extend the virtual services, ranging from advisement to financial aid to whatever else that students might be able to get. And it's important to note that we do have several distance programs which are entirely virtual. They all exist within the College of Extended Learning, same College of Extended Learning, and those programs have their own very specific virtual services to support them. So pre-COVID, they existed as virtual with support services. Post-COVID, certainly we have room for a conversation as to what we might want to retain and how we're going to support those services.
Wonderful, thank you both so much. We have come to the conclusion of our campus conversation, but I would like to quickly just give a thank you to Provost Mary Beth Walker and Vice Provost Matthew Csun for being so flexible with their schedules and taking time out of their day just to join us for this event. I know I'm extremely grateful. I know so many other students are incredibly happy just having this kind of openness and transparency. So thank you both so much just for being able to take time out of your day to just attend this event and really just be an amazing representation for our students. With that being said, we will be hosting our next campus conversation with Vice President William Watkins, so Dr. Watkins, which is extremely exciting, which will be hosted by our Chief of Staff, Kayla Simpkins, on November 3rd at 3:30. So please do make sure that you register so that way you can get any last minute questions that you may need answered. And we are really looking forward to seeing all of our students there. Make sure to register and include any questions that you may have. So other than that, thank you all so much for this event and for attending. And that will conclude our campus conversation for today.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting us. We're always happy to talk to you and take a quick look at the course schedule that I think will be out next week. And then you can see all the modality, et cetera, of those courses. And we look forward to talking to y'all again. Thank you, Caitlin. You're great.
Thank you so much. Likewise.